Biking, an American pastime as classic as baseball or paying health insurance bills, is ingrained into the culture. Just about all of us rode bikes growing up, before a lot of Americans at one point we stopped, because riding bikes can no longer get us where we want to go, or simply because it's too dangerous. But in many cities around the world, people continue biking throughout their lives and into old age. So what's the difference? Why do some cities and towns have a vibrant biking culture, while others reserve the activity for children in small, secluded neighborhoods? Well, if you look at cities like Amsterdam, Copenhagen, or even Somerville, Massachusetts, it's because they have fantastic bike lane networks. To understand how our great American cities can build fantastic bike networks, first we have to understand what a bike network really is. It's not just a bike lane here and there, it's a way for people to feel safe and comfortable getting places. More on that later, but first I want to share an example of what an effective bike lane network isn't. Unfortunately, it's a city I love, but I think needs to do a bit better. New York City. Now, a lot of you, especially the New Yorkers, may be yelling at your screens, but New York has a lot of bike lanes, probably the most of any city in the country. And while that may be true, it's first, a very, very low bar, and second, that doesn't mean the city can't improve. There are smaller issues here and there that I think could be solved relatively easily, like the lack of protected bike lanes where they could easily be implemented. But the major gripe I have with New York City's bike lane network is that it's not really that. A network. This is New York City's official 2025 bike map. It shows all the biking infrastructure in New York City, from protected bike lanes in green, unprotected bike lanes in blue, and designated shared lanes in purple. The flyer also points out a few key biking laws, which I think is a really nice touch. It mentions that bikes can cross intersections with the walk signal and that mopeds are not allowed in bike lanes. But what this map really illustrates is that there are giant gaps in the New York City bike lane network. Although major corridors and arteries have protected bike lanes and dedicated bike paths, the majority of the network either has unprotected bike lanes or no bike lanes at all. This may work for people just trying to get through their own neighborhood, but for everyday people trying to make cross-borough trips, the gaps in the network prevent biking from being a feasible option. For example, I used to live around here in Bushwick, and I would frequently visit Williamsburg over here to do things like get groceries, eat out, etc. The two neighborhoods border each other. It's no more than a 20-minute bike, but if you take a look at the map, there's a large gap in the biking infrastructure between the two neighborhoods. Just about all bike traffic between the two neighborhoods is funneled here, through this intersection at Morgan Avenue and Grand Street. Looking at the map, you wouldn't think that's a huge issue. The two streets are an unprotected and protected bike lane respectively, but what this map doesn't show you is that this is a pretty major industrial area, meaning that there are often large commercial vehicles only feet away from the bike lane, which is unprotected. And in both the unprotected and protected portions of these streets, these large vehicles often block the lane entirely, forcing you to leave the bike lane and share the road with these 30+ ton vehicles. This essentially creates a huge gap in the network and is a plausible reason for even the most experienced bikers not to use this road. This is a common example throughout New York City. Near perfect protected bike lanes just end and throw bikers back out into the unprotected street. If people don't feel safe and protected using a city's bike network, they will not use it, and Somerville, Massachusetts knew this. When they designed their bike network in 2023, the city of Somerville released a bicycle network plan with the stated goal of being safe and comfortable for people of all ages and abilities. If you look at cities like Amsterdam or Copenhagen, there are no gaps in the bike network. Somerville breaks the infrastructure of their bike network into 5 categories. First, we have protected bike lanes. Pretty self-explanatory. These are bike lanes separated from car traffic by parked cars, bollards, raised curbs, etc. Next, we have what Somerville calls neighborways. These are essentially neighborhood roads with infrastructure changes such as speed humps and narrow entries to slow down car traffic and prevent rat running. One explicit call out I love about neighborways is that even if the road is one way for cars, it is still two-way for bike traffic. Cars and bikes are two completely different modes of transportation and shouldn't have the same road rules. One of these modes can unalive a family of 5 in an instant, so it makes sense that they have stricter rules and regulations. But onto Somerville's third bike infrastructure type, shared streets. If you're familiar with many pedestrian plazas in European cities, these are essentially that. Priority pedestrian and cyclist spaces. Cars may not be outright banned, but it is very clear that these are not through roads and are only meant for local traffic. Next, we have off-street paths and trails separate from roads with cars, Somerville's primary example being the Somerville Community Path. And lastly, we have what Somerville calls existing bike lanes. In Somerville, these are unprotected bike lanes that existed before the network redesign that aren't considered part of the new bicycle network because they are, again, unprotected bike lanes and not suitable for use of people by all ages and abilities. You can tell Somerville took one directly from the European playbook, essentially saying that unprotected bike lanes are not effective biking infrastructure. Are you taking notes, New York? In my opinion, Somerville's success comes down to 3 essential steps that cities around the country and world can replicate. Step 1, have as many dedicated paths as possible. These essentially work as arteries for the bike lane networks. Summerville isn't a huge city, the population sits just below 100,000, but a lot of residents work and play in the neighboring city. You may have heard of it, Boston, Massachusetts. The Somerville Community Path works kind of like a bike highway, safely transporting commuters and hobbyists to the big city. The nice thing about bike highways is that they are also available to other users. On the Somerville Community Path, you'll often see runners getting a workout in or people taking a leisurely stroll away from the noise and distraction of other roads with cars. What's step 2 to building a bike lane network? Where you can't completely separate car traffic, implement protected bike lanes and protected bike lanes only. Slapping down a layer of green paint and calling a road multi-use is not good enough. There needs to be a physical barrier separating 2-ton cars from 20-pound bicycles in order for people to feel safe and actually use the network. And step 3 to building a better bike lane network, actually make the network a network. Bike infrastructure shouldn't be thought of on a street-by-street basis. It has to be a web of infrastructure connecting places where people live to places where people want to go. If the bike network doesn't actually work as a cohesive system, it isn't useful and therefore nobody will rely on it. And I actually have a secret fourth and maybe most important step. Community buy-in. The community has to actually care about bicycling and safety for any of this to work. This means investing in bike infrastructure, city planning with bicyclists in mind, and respecting bikers on the roads. In 2023, the city council voted unanimously to mandate 30 miles of protected bike lanes by 2030. Things like this and investing in traffic calming measures such as curb extensions and lane narrowing don't just make bicyclists safer, they make all road users safer, drivers included. Now, Somerville isn't perfect, no system is, there's always room for improvement. I think Somerville could seek more areas to pedestrianize. This is still pretty taboo in car-dependent North America, but European cities like Amsterdam and Copenhagen have shown it is possible, if not preferable, to have thriving business districts and pedestrian priority areas. Additionally, while the community does have some blue bike stations, Greater Boston's bike share system, 1, I believe the density is nowhere near as high as it needs to be, and 2, Somerville is very hilly, and as you may know, I hate how heavy lifts rental bikes are. It makes even slight inclines an intense workout, and especially in summer, I end up sweaty whenever I use them, drastically limiting their usability. Now, this may be a Blue Bikes problem or a Greater Boston problem, but we need either lighter bicycles or more e-bikes. It makes no sense that cities like Copenhagen are able to offer self-service rental bikes that are nearly identical in weight and size to normal bikes. But in North America, we get these tanks on 2 wheels. There are bike share systems like Avelo in Quebec City that are 100% electric. Blue Bikes doesn't need to be 100% electric, but there should always be an e-bike available at every dock. But now I'm just kind of ranting. I gotta make a whole nother Lyft bike share and city bike video just to get all my frustrations out, because since the last video released, I've developed a lot more. But if you liked this video, hit that like button, and if you want to see more micromobility and urbanism focused videos like this, I think you should subscribe. It's free. Alright, I'll see you soon. Bye.